Okay, hello, greetings, welcome everyone. Now, this is about evocational practice. When you're invoking a spirit, you're mentally transferring your mind to vibrationally match the spirit in the process so that you can open up a line of communication, whether it's intuitive, observing, hearing, and so forth. In this process, your first step is not to try and project and communicate or talk to the being you're invoking. Just to sit quietly and listen. You're a student upon the pathway. You quietly observe the information through your spirit senses. You don't project or intend. The reason you don't do this, if you have any form of projected intention, there's an automatic break in equanimity, and you have a high risk of you essentially talking to yourself. If you sit in equanimity and observe the sensations, the visuals, the auditory, and so forth, now you're in a layered observation process. You're observing it arising and falling away. It's very similar to watching thoughts arise and fall away in your early meditation. You recognize the thoughts are not you, and because you've mentally transferred into the spirit, the deity, you recognize those thoughts are the property of the spirit deity. They're not they don't belong to your mind. You're not generating them. You're observing them arising on that field of consciousness. So this process of tuning into these spiritual beings and observing the information flow, you have a high risk of essentially talking to your own imagination. Now, the way we define what is us and what is the spirit is using the principle of contrast. Even though your mind is in resonance with the spirit, there's the observer that's observing the interaction with the spirit. This observer is it's noticing a big contrast between what it's used to and this new intelligence that it's communicating with. So as you go through this process of tuning in to the spirit and listening to it, there's a deep separation in what you're used to and this new intelligence you're working with. And as you do that, you're going to notice there's a how would you put it, a character or a personality of the deity you're working with, which starts to form. As it does that, you have to keep the layers as far apart as you can as you observe, so that you're not identifying with or interacting with on an astral ego level, but you're just allowing your mind to be the quiet observer. So this is something that needs to be konnichiwa. Thank you. Arigato. Okay, well, careful. Thank you. Yeah, so when you're going through the process, you have to be very, very sensitive to constructs of your own mind that you're familiar with. If you are essentially talking to yourself, the part of you that is talking has a high degree of familiarity. So it's like thoughts that you know within yourself. That's imagination. Information that flows from the deity is like you're talking to a different personality, a different mind, a different consciousness. So this ability to differentiate between the two is a skill you develop over time. If you are rushing into the process, of connecting to deities and start to talk to them, there's a very high probability that you'll be talking to yourself. So use a lot of sensitivity and intelligence in how long you simply observe before you enter any form of dialogue. Now, one thing that's very important with working with spirits is that the moment you tune into them, they read you. They read your mental state, your astral state, your physical state. You don't need to say anything. You already said everything you need to say by your emanation, your aura, the projection of your feeling, who you are, what you're putting out there. So this this emanation that you put out is all the information they need. They can read that, translate that, and there's volumes about you, which is in your mind substance, in your spiritual essence, in your astral body, in your physical body. You don't need to talk. It's just your ego who's seeking to speak. Just let the energy exchange, and they will naturally have the tendency to see strengths and inadequacies. They'll see what your need is, and there's a supply-demand principle that tends to run in the background. That if you have a demand for a certain spiritual nourishment, they can give you the energy, the information, and supply that to you as an effect of the interaction. They already know what you need. You don't have to tell them. Most people have no idea what they need. So by your ego coming up with some type of fabrication isn't necessary. So again, connect into the frequency of the deity, go through all the preliminary work, of course, which we've already described. And once you've done that preliminary work, then you mentally transfer in. You've created the internal environment for the deity. You mentally transfer to the deity. You may be doing this through Akasha, through light, in the consciousness of the deity, and then allow the information exchange to take place. Pull all the layers apart, so you're essentially floating yourself and observing all the layers, and be a quiet observer to the process. Minimize ego interaction, and you'll be off to a good start. All right, so I hope this helps with those of you who are working with the evocation process and looking to define the difference between talking to yourself and talking to a spirit. And there isn't an intuitive part of your mind which knows the difference. Just need to learn to listen to it. All right, thanks for your time. See you in the next video.